So when Jesus said, go preach the gospel of the kingdom, and I explained it, the word kingdom means authority and rulership, right? Doesn't it sound like being an overcomer? What was the greatest faith Jesus ever spoke about? The centurion man, he said, he has more faith than anyone in the house of Israel, because when he came to me, he said, you don't have to do anything. I'm not worthy that you come under my roof, but you only have to say the word and it'll happen. Because I know how this works. I'm a man of authority. When I say to my servant, he goes. And when I say to another one, come, he comes. So what is great faith equivalent to? Authority. Amen. What is it meant for? To overcome stuff in our lives. Now let's read. Amen? Let me not go on a tangent here. Amen? So I'm going to start off in verse 22. In fact, let's start in verse 23. That'd be fine. Now they came up with a plan, and the plan was to send spies into the promised land. Now all of you have a promised land, right? You have a vision. You have a word from God. You have a promise from God. Amen? So let's read what it says. The plan pleased me, and I took 12 of your men, one man from each tribe, and then they turned and went up into the hill country and came to the valley of Eshcol and spied it out, and they took some of the fruit of the land in their hands and brought it down to us. They also brought us back a report and said, the land that the Lord our God is about to give us is good. Amen. Now, how many of you have a word from the Lord that is good? Let's read. Yet you were unwilling to go up. Instead, you rebelled against the command of the Lord your God, and you grumbled in your tents and said, because the Lord hates us. Now, hold on a second. I want you to take this into context. The command of the Lord wasn't, in this situation, righteous living, which I'm not denying that clearly because I've already made note of that earlier. The command of the Lord in this situation was, I've given you a promise, now get up and go possess the promise. Yes. Okay, let me help you out. The command of the Lord was not, get rid of hate and don't kill your neighbor and all that good stuff, right? The command here is this. I've given you a promise. Go get it. Amen. Yes. Get up and go get the promise. Amen. No, I'm waiting. I'm going to wait. Amen? Amen? And what did God say about them not possessing their promise, going to get their promise? What does he say? Yet you were unwilling to go. Instead, you rebelled. So what does the Bible call us when we don't go to possess what God promised us? He calls us rebellious. Amen. Right? And you grumbled in your tents and said, because the Lord hates us, He has brought us out of the land of Egypt. Now remember, Egypt, they came out of Egypt. They had to go through the desert. And then going through the desert, how many have been in a desert? Okay, it's hot. Ain't no water. Usually there's a lot of snakes and scorpions, and stuff like that. So they had to go through this desert. Amen? But just keep this in mind for a second. You know what they used to do before God took them through the desert? They were slaves. They were slave labor in the land of Egypt. They had slave masters with whips watching them all the time. And God says, I'm going to take you out of that, and I'm going to give you a promise. And I'm going to take you through a desert to the promise that I'm taking you to. And guess what they did? They got up out of the desert, out of Egypt, into the desert, and they stayed there for how long? 40 years. And they would not take one action to go into the promise, but they stayed amongst the scorpions and the snakes and those hot rocks that probably burned a bunch of blisters on their feet and no water. And God provided for them all the time in the desert because they had a mindset of just enough. Just till tomorrow. Just enough till tomorrow. Just enough till tomorrow. Meantime, God's like, I got you in the land of plenty. Let's read. And you grumbled in your tents and said, because the Lord hates us, He has brought us out of the land of Egypt to hand us over to the Amorites to destroy us. Where can we go up? Our brothers have made our hearts melt by saying the people are bigger than we. Now, hold on a second. I know there were 10 people that said the following. But I want you to pay attention to this. Something really important about this. I know that there were 10 people that said, you can't take the land because there's giants in the land. And then there was the 2, Joshua and Caleb, that said, hey, we can take it. Usually the ones that are negative are more than the ones that are positive.
Yes, amen.
It's usually that way. It doesn't matter. You can, yeah, let me just not go on that right now. But, you know, we all know that's true. Amen. Where can we go up? Okay, then it says, the people are bigger and taller than we. The cities are larger and fortified up to heaven. And besides, we saw the sons of Anakim there. But I said to you, do not be terrified, nor fear them. The Lord your God who goes before you will Now, remember, He just destroyed the whole Egyptian army in the Red Sea. And now they're scared of giants with no army. It doesn't even make sense.
Yes, amen.
Do you understand what I'm saying? This fear they have is not even a logical fear. If you think about it practically, you know. But I said to you, do not be terrified, nor fear them. The Lord your God who goes before you will Himself fight for you, just as He did for you in Egypt before your eyes and in the wilderness, where you saw how the Lord your God carried you, just as a man carries his son on all of the road which you have walked until you came to this place. Yet in spite of all of this, you did not trust the Lord your God, who goes before you on your way to seek out a place for you to make camp, in the fire by night to show you the way by which you should go, and in the cloud by day. Let me tell you something. Sometimes the provision of the Lord is your greatest enemy. I'm going to tell you why. Because when you get comfortable with just enough, the manna in the desert, the water that flowed out of the rock, you become complacent and you will not go to the place of more than enough. Because the provision of the Lord is meant to take you through the desert, not to keep you in the desert. And the problem with complacency with most Christians, it keeps them in the desert. It never takes them to the promised land. Because they're satisfied with the provision. Oh, God provided for me. He'll provide again. No. The provision was to take you through the desert to get you to the promised land. The provision was not to keep you there and keep you comfortable with them hot stones burning blisters on your feet and the scorpions and the serpents, so that Moses had to put a serpent on a pole so that those who look on it may be healed. See, even though He provided the healing from the serpents in the desert, didn't mean He wanted to keep you in the desert. Amen.